Welcome to the Long Distance Pizza Party Podcast with your hosts Nathan, Crad, Strange, and Silly, where we talk about podcasts, pizza, politics, and something else. We'll figure it out.
As long as I don't drop from the call this time, we'll be good.
That's going to be really awkward because I'm just going to be talking to myself.
Oh yeah. Alright, hello everyone, welcome back to the Long Distance Pizza Party Podcast, episode 20. I almost forgot what episode number was until I was editing last week's episode, because I didn't get to say anything, because if you watched last week, I dropped from the call 5 minutes into the call. New world record. Silly wasn't there, you know, he would have really enjoyed it. Speaking of Silly, he is not here, neither is Strange, but Crad and I are here. This is what, fourth time they've left us alone?
Or third or fourth. I don't know if that means I don't know if that means if they trust us with the podcast or just trying to run. I don't know what that means.
I don't know. They're being really nice about saying something about it, though. So I guess.
Yeah. So I guess they trust us to uphold the brand, if you will, for a little while while they're gone.
Speaking of brands, is nostalgia destroying our favorite stuff that we watch and stuff that we enjoy? I had this idea because recently I've been watching the new X-Men 97 show, which is hinged on you remembering the old show. On top of, we have a new Deadpool movie coming out, there is a new Transformers movie coming out, I saw Ghostbusters, the last recording we had. There is so much now where it's like, hey, do you remember this thing from like the 80s or 90s coming out now? And I think like a large part of it is streaming services. They're like trying to get people on. They're like, hey, do you remember this show? Well, we're going to bring back with all the original cast, except for maybe two people. You know, I don't know. I had a lot of thoughts about it. One mainly from that Ghostbusters movie, because I think it's like the different types of nostalgia you have. Because there's the nostalgia of, hey, I really remember this, versus there's the nostalgia of, I kind of remember that, but I want to add my thumbprint to it, you know? I want to have my mark on it.
Right.
Like, that's really what I thought. What do you think, Crad?
Well, I mean, I guess it depends upon kind of how invested you are with whatever you're seeing. A lot of people will kind of look at things, like you said, with nostalgia. It's kind of looking at something with rose-colored glasses in a way, because you think, man, well, back in when they did this, it was so much better without. So, like I said, I guess it depends upon how deep into something you are. If you're really a big fan of, say, like you said, X-Men, you're obviously going to know a lot more than somebody who just kind of is an everyday fan, and so it might not affect them as much if somebody makes a decision that is totally different from what it used to be. Or same thing with, say, a food. If you have a favorite food that you've had for a long time, or you think back to a food you loved when you were a kid, and somebody takes that same food in a whole different direction, it doesn't matter a lot to you if you don't have a connection with it. So I think it depends upon the deeper the connection to what the past, the more it will either positively affect your current view of a product or negatively affect your current view of a product. That's what nostalgia does, in my opinion.
Yeah. And X-Men's weird for me because I am not the biggest X-Men fan, but I connected with the show. I didn't watch a lot of the original show. I mean, I wasn't around when it was on, obviously. But, I knew of it because people talked to it. Like, yeah, X-Men 97, it's this great show. If you really like X-Men or comic books, you'll like this show. And for me, because there's a lot of stuff in X-Men because it's a big, long-spanning soap opera. And to me, I'm like, oh, whatever, I don't like some of the drama. But to me, it fixed stuff in X-Men for me. Like, some, plot points they did. And the show is way better.
Right.
And I was like, oh, this is actually interesting. I'm actually really invested in this show. I think it's actually also a show I've been invested in, waiting for a new episode each week. Because I don't remember the last thing I watched where I was, invested in waiting for the next episode. One, because you have Netflix, who does the binge culture, drop 10 episodes, 8 episodes at a time, versus Disney, where they're like, hey, let's just do episode week to week to week. Except for, there's one of them they didn't do that with. They're just like, I don't know, everything all at once. For some reason. I don't know. And it's just weird, because, this, obviously the stuff I grew up, I watch and stuff like that, being a big Transformers fan, nostalgia is, a big thing for stuff like that, where it's like, hey, you 40-year-olds, remember this? You have the money for that now. We've made a new figure of it, which is frustrating. But yeah, and it really hit me because, again, I was watching Ghostbusters Frozen Empire, and that was, to me, was like the worst type of nostalgia. Because It was like, hey, remember this? But we have to add something to it.
Right. It's like that, but better.
Yeah, but is it better? Like, it's...
Yeah.
I kid you not, I watched the one before this, Afterlife, and it's mostly the same movie.
Right.
Of the original. Like, I'm like, oh, you don't have an original idea here. Like, it's... Like, it's cool seeing all the new stuff, like, in a fresh coat of paint, but, like, I want something fresh. I want something new. Like, it doesn't work here. Like, they have the entire plot of the parents becoming the dogs, and Zool coming back. Like, we got that. We already did Zool. Zool's been defeated, move on. Mm-hmm. But then they do something new, and again, that even doesn't work. So it's like, I don't mind callbacks and stuff, but don't treat it like it's a museum guide. It's like, do you remember this? Like, it's... I don't know. I don't like being spoon-fed stuff I remember, I guess. That's the way I look at it. Where it's like...
Well, I think sometimes that a lot... well, maybe more than just sometimes. A lot of times, people will take brands that we loved growing up and will purposely tap into a sense of nostalgia in order to re-engage you with a product or re-engage you with a brand. Basically they will use that sense of nostalgia as a marketing tool, like you were saying, to re-engage you, which is kind of shady in a way, but it works very well. Unfortunately, I'm sure I've fallen, victim to that myself in the past. Actually, I can tell you for a fact I have, and I can give you an example. I just came to mind.
Okay.
Back when I was younger, I was a real big fan of Dunkaroos. You know Dunkaroos?
Yeah. Dunkaroos.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then they went away for a long time. And then, all of a sudden, hey, we're bringing Dunkaroos back. So automatically my mind associates, man, I really used to love Dunkaroos as a kid. I have to have them again. Like, it's like that concept that was still in there, even though Dunkaroos have not been around for such a long time. Now they're pulling it back, bringing something back out from the vault, so to speak. And then, now you got experience. Was it the same or even better than it was when I was a kid? It's kind of the same. It's kind of the same, I guess, concept when you see food places that'll have a limited time menu offering, and people will love it, and they won't make it a permanent thing, and they'll put it back in their vault, and then like a year or two later they'll pull it back out, knowing it's going to be an instant increase in sales for a while. Like they just did it again with nacho fries at Taco Bell. That's come back for like the ninth time.
You can go to my channel and watch that video. That'll be out Monday.
Well, there you go. See, you're the perfect man to talk about this because it is fast talk food reviews for you. So.
Yeah, I did a whole gripe about it because I was like, yeah, like you're saying, this is the ninth time they've done it.
Yeah,
and I was like,
so
just make it permanent. If you don't have the worm on the hook, just.
It's one of those things. I think they do it when they need like a quick cash infusion, essentially, because they know.
I think they do it in the slow season. They're like, oh, nothing's gonna come out till the summer. Nacho fries. They're just like it's. Now, it would really get them if they were like the Doritos Locos Tacos. They took those away. They're like, you know what? You're gonna wait a year to get these back. I think some people would flip,
revolt. Yeah,
but yeah, they're just like, no.
I was kind of saying that, like they figure out that they have something, a strong brand that people will continue to return to time and time again, and for whatever reason they've decided not to make it permanent. It might be because it's not cost effective in the long run if they do it too long, or it might be because it's too complicated sometimes to fix. In this case, I'm sure nacho fries aren't. I mean, come on, it's just fries and seasoning, so it's not that difficult. But the point is, they play on your nostalgia that you've come to love something, and they take it away, and then they reintroduce it down the road, and it's like, oh crap, gotta have it before it goes back out again. And so that is a form of nostalgia to me as well.
It's like even with the Baja Blast, like that used to be a novelty thing, from
Right.
Mountain Dew. They're like, hey, but now it's like out every year, and every time they've added flavors to it, to the Baja line.
Well, now it's a full on, like, the Baja Blast is now a full on flavor of its own. It's actually been released out into stores.
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
not even a
and it's
Taco Bell, just at Taco Bell anymore.
yeah, and it's like got spin-off stuff to it, and every time I'm like, it's not special anymore. Because you'd
Right.
only dropped it every once in a while, and like, it's, I don't know, it's weird. But like, even going into properties like that, again, X-Men 97, I've been really liking it because I never feel like I'm lost. Like, I'm like, oh, I don't know what's going on because I haven't watched all of it. Like, I don't know, like, they kind of do a really good job of, even if you know like some comic knowledge, they know that you're like, oh, we're set in this point, Professor X is gone, we're moving on. And I'm like, oh, okay, this is
Right.
actually kind of interesting because I haven't been interested in X-Men forever. Like, I don't know the last time I actually was like read an actual X-Men comic and was like enjoying it because of like the weird crap in it. Like, I'm just like, oh, I can't get into like the weird thing with like Cyclops, Wolverine, and Jean Grey. I can't get into that or like any of this other stuff. But the show's doing it like way better because it's like, oh, we have hindsight now. We can change it and like streamline it to make it more cohesive, but also keep that like soap opera-ness. Like the latest episode, Captain America showed up, so it's like now everything's connected because it's connected to the old '90s stuff. So it's now everyone's going, "Hey, where's Spider-Man? Where's the Spider-Man '90s cartoon?" Like that's the next one they want to do. So it's like, oh, okay, this is actually interesting. It's like again, that's nostalgia, or like Mattel. They did a Barbie movie. Like, that kind of, like, I never watched it, so I don't know how much of the
Right.
toys it plays with. Or is it just one
Right.
big feminist agenda? Take a pick.
Right.
But, like, Mattel's like, hey, you remember Street Sharks, the Ninja Turtle ripoff? We're bringing that back.
Right.
Because they're Jossum guys, you know, they're just... That is their tagline. We're Jossum.
Right.
Or it's Jossum. I was like, that is maybe the worst tagline I've heard.
What do you
Maybe.
think for you is a good, like for you personally, do you think is a good case of nostalgia? What is something that actually makes you nostalgic?
It's got to be Transformers still. Transformers and Ninja Turtles are the two things where I'm like, because as a kid, I didn't watch a lot of current TV. We didn't have cable. But back in the day, before you had a lot of your streaming services like Netflix, a lot of these places, if you went to the website, they would have free episodes. So I watch a lot of the Transformers cartoon from there, or if you went to Blockbuster, they'd have like the DVD collections. And I think I watched mixed apart the entire Ninja Turtles show at one point, like over like a couple years, because of course sometimes other people would rent it. But I'm like, oh, I really remember this cartoon. I really like these certain episodes. And so I'm like, where did this quote come?
Right.
Oh, it's from that one episode. And TikTok also doesn't help because people post clips. And it's like, oh yeah, I remember that episode. But I'm also an adult enough to go back and watch. I'm like, oh, this show's actually not that great. The animation's not that great in this episode. Oh, they were a Saturday morning cartoon. They'd have an episode out like every day or every other day. So sometimes the animation's not that great. Oh, another studio worked on it. But I still appreciate it because, like, heck, I can't really show it on the camera because like the camera's all wonky. Ninja Turtles is on my wall. Transformers is on this shelf over here. Like, I am still ingrained in those two fandoms and cultures because of like my nostalgia of those. And which is funny because they just dropped the Transformers trailer for the new Transformers movie they're working on, Transformers 1. And I heard so many people complaining, like it's not my. They're like, it's not my Transformers. And I'm just like, yeah, it's not meant to be. Like it's for this new audience, like, which I found really funny. But
Right.
yeah, but I'm excited for it. I'm excited for that Transformers movie. But I know some people aren't. But again, there is plenty of stuff out there for you to watch if you like any of your stuff, especially if they reboot it. I don't know if you ever watched that Teen Titans Go reboot they did of the Teen
Not
Titans
really,
show.
not much at all.
Yeah, no, I've watched maybe 5 episodes collectively because I knew someone that liked it. But again, so many people got mad about that because they were nostalgic for that Teen Titans show that had been off air for like 10 years at that point. But it didn't help that that show had the same character designs and voice actors for the original show, and then started poking fun at it. Like, that's the part of nostalgia I don't like, where it's like, don't make fun of the fans that you already have or the material you're pulling from.
Right.
Because then you create the toxic nostalgia that's around for a lot of these properties as well. Like, that's like the worst part of fandoms I don't like. And I'm sure you've experienced it, just being like in the sidelines seeing that, where it's like, oh, I don't like this, or I don't like that, or I like this part I don't like. Like, it's very iffy. And it makes you not really like that thing you like. You're like, oh, I don't like that part of the group.
Right.
Like, it's
Yeah, I think pretty much with any long-term brand or any long-term product, um, you're obviously going to have a lot of different people with a lot of different feelings, and it can depend upon how long they've been engaged with the product or what era they came in. Like you said, Transformers is a good example, because you have people that only grew up with, or they start out with like the old school cartoons from way back in the
G1.
day. Yeah, or you got people that have maybe just got turned on because of Michael Bay movies, or you might have other examples. And
the show that's out. Yeah.
Yeah, or the show. So, it all depends upon kind of how long you've been with that brand and how long you've been with that product, to really shape your opinion of it, I guess. And the thing about it, I think people get so defensive about their certain point of view. Everybody is right in one way or another, as far as that kind of goes, because it affects each person differently.
Yeah.
Some people might have liked the Michael Bay movies. Some people might not like the Michael Bay movies. They might have thought, well, that was just kind of ridiculous. And they're right in their own way.
Gee,
It's
crap,
all. I guess it's all.
You mean the Mountain Dew robot wasn't that ridiculous? I think that's the first one.
Point being,
that's the first movie.
Point being is that the beautiful thing about nostalgia is that it's personal. It's personal to you.
Yeah.
What it may affect you in a different way than somebody else. So that's kind of the cool thing about it. It's personal to you. Like Transformers, not a big one for me, and that's okay. But for me, it's more like Starship Trooper Chronicles, the animated series.
Right.
That was when I would get up in the mornings as before I'd go to school. I think I would watch that. I would watch the old school Starship Trooper Chronicles cartoons, or the old school Power Rangers, or Saturday mornings they'd have the old school ABC, Saturday morning cartoon lineup. I'm talking like Doug and Rocko's Modern Life and Ren and Stimpy and All Real Monsters and just all this stuff. But as it said, nostalgia is interesting because a lot of times the things that are looked at as old and outdated now, as we see, come back again. And people long to return to a period where it seemed like things were simpler and times were nicer and everything else. And I see that even with technology. You see the evolution of like a thing called the cell phone. It started out as like this big old huge thing that only certain people had, or you had to have a car phone. That's real old school. If you had a car, you remember, you ever looked up car phones before?
Oh,
You obviously don't remember car phones because you're young.
It's like holy crap, this is
big old brick and a car phone. I remember my dad having one of the first cell phones. That thing was huge. But like even get down to flip phones. Flip phones for a long time were very popular, and I went through more razors than I care to talk about, Motorola razors. But even that's come back around where they try to make a flip phone or a foldable phone. They've
Yeah.
made stuff like that. Or another good example would be records. I did not. I grew up when I was growing up. We mainly had CDs, but before my generation was records. And of course, for a long time, those grew out of popularity. Then all of a sudden, 5 years ago, or however long it was ago, all of a sudden they got hot again, and Walmart, for crying out
Yeah.
loud,
Yeah.
started stocking records and record players. So,
Heck, they might have
who's to say
more
that
CDs
stuff?
soon.
Yeah,
They might do
who's
more
to say
CD.
that that
Well,
won't come back?
do you hear what Target's doing? They're going to get rid of all their physical media next year.
That is sad. I did not know that actually.
So now I feel like Walmart's like, well, now we're gonna have a bigger physical section because there are people that still like that. Now I personally still like CDs only because my car doesn't have an aux cord. So I still have like a case of CDs that are in my car. I have like the foldable
Right.
books. I have one of those in my car, and I have a bunch of CDs in there. Because like as a kid, that's all I would go to like the Christian bookstore, grab all the buy the DVDs or the CDs.
Right.
Because when I was younger MP3s were a thing, but like I was like, oh, I kind of like the physical media. I kind of like the CD. That's kind of like, yeah, I'm still kind of that way. Occasionally, I'll get like MP3s only if I really want to listen to the album.
Right.
But I'm like, occasionally I'm like, oh, I'll wait for the physical release because I know I can get it. So like it's again that's a nostalgic thing where it's like 5 or 6 years ago records really weren't a thing, and now there's a lot of people that like records and collect records of a lot of things.
Right.
Like it's weird. Like it's bizarre. And like
Yep.
nostalgia is like this weird drug. I don't know if you watched or read Watchmen. There's a scene in the book, and I think it's in the I don't remember if it's in the movie. Vought, one of the characters, he's kind of like a Superman type character. He has like a business, and he's like, I'm gonna sell nostalgia. It's like a perfume.
Hmm.
And it's the book is set during like the 80s, so it's like on the cusp of the Cold War, but in this world like there really isn't a Cold War. Like they just or no, yeah, like in this book, Vietnam is about to become a state of the U.S. Like this alternate history. So it's like, but stuff like, but times are changing. So Vought's like, well, I have this, like, again, he's selling nostalgia. So it's
Right.
like look, everyone remembers things. How do they used to be? How do people remember our heroes? Like stuff like that. Like I always think of that kind of thing, where it's like, oh yeah, these studios or companies are like, oh, you remember this thing from 20 years ago? Well, we're gonna bring it back. And again, that's like it's a double-edged sword because, like this episode's probably gonna be titled, "Is nostalgia too much now?" Because that's all I'm seeing. It's never I'm like, hey, where's that cool original idea?
Right.
Where's like this original sitcom or this original show? And if they do come out, they get like canceled after like a season. Like it doesn't, like it's kind of sucks. Like you
Right.
brought up Doug and like Rocko's Modern Life, and I was like, oh, Netflix all of a sudden now has all these Nickelodeon shows on there.
Right.
Or
Right.
Disney Plus is like, hey, we have all the Disney Afternoon on our streaming service. It's like, you remember, like, and again, kids are gonna watch it. They're like, parents are like, here, watch DuckTales, the new one or the old one. Watch
Right.
that. That's, but even the new DuckTales show, I think, is a good way of nostalgia. It's like it takes what you know, but changes it, but in a good, like, it not like changing it in a bad way. It's like we're gonna update it for the times because it's the 2010s, 2020s. And like because like some kids aren't gonna understand a telephone, they aren't gonna understand like a rotary phone, like this certain like rewritable diskette, they aren't gonna understand that. But it's also really weird seeing like certain characters have cell phones. Like
Right.
that's weird for me. Like certain characters like using cell phones. I'm like, oh, this is jarring because in the cartoons,
Yeah.
the '80s, they didn't have that. Like it doesn't jive for me sometimes. I'm like, oh, okay. Or like, oh my gosh, I don't.
Right.
Again, Transformers. I don't like the new Transformers show. There are several reasons why I don't like it. But they try making Optimus seem like he's trying to relate to the kids. But it's that meme of like, "Hello, fellow children." Like it's that. I'm like, oh, I don't really like that part. That's weird. that doesn't work. There's a couple other things again of old shows that are new. It feels like people coming to play catch up. Like, well, we gotta introduce a new girl character, or hey, we gotta introduce the LGBTQ community into this show because they weren't there. Like it's getting that like the other part of nostalgia. It's like, hey, you remember this? Well, this is here now.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's that weird pivot. I think now, and sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't work. Again, X-Men '97 does this pretty well, where they introduce a trans character, and they're really not in the show. It's actually really weird. I was expecting them to be really in the show, and they're more of a background character that's kind of just there, that says a line or two, kind of actually gives advice, and they kind of treat it like he's kind of like the gay uncle of the X Mansion, but he's not like outright. He's not like waving a flag around, be like, "Hey, I'm gay."
Right.
Like it's done tastefully, I think. At least now, there's about 8 episodes. So I don't know if there's going to be a whole episode where they explore a lot of his character. Do you watch that Rocco Modern Life movie they made on Netflix?
I'm trying to think. I don't think so.
Not
yet, anyway.
I don't remember watching Rocco's Modern Life, but apparently he got launched into space at some point in the movie because he comes back to Earth, and they introduce like a trans character, and it's really weird. Like it doesn't fit in that show.
Wow.
Because but I'm like, oh, this is odd. And then you look at a lot of Nickelodeon's products where they started doing that. Like I was waiting for in the Avatar live action series, which is another weird form of nostalgia where we have to repeat the same thing. I was really expecting that, but they didn't. The show's really not that great. I actually have not finished it. I got maybe 3 episodes in. And it actually made me want to like, I kind of want to rewatch the original show. There you go. It didn't help that someone did a scene-by-scene like comparison on TikTok. And I was like, man, the original show looks way better.
So in a weird way, that gave you a sense of nostalgia for the original stuff.
Yeah, which I hadn't watched in forever. I remember watching all the way through at one point, but it had been forever. And I was like, oh, this is, again, that weird nostalgia where like, oh, I'd rather watch the original series than the new one. Like it, like it doesn't, like it's weird. Like it's like this is bizarre, or like now they're like what was I gonna say? Oh, they're like we're gonna do a new Batman show, but we're gonna get the original animated series cast back, and I'm like, but it doesn't really work now because a lot of them are dead. Like it doesn't.
Right.
Like Mr. Freeze is dead. Batman Kevin Conroy is dead. Mark Hamill's around, but he's not going to do Joker anymore. Like that's like again hollow nostalgia. It's like, hey, remember this show? We're going to do it, but it's going to have none of the charm from the original show,
right?
Because it's a different creative group. It's a different animation studio. Animation has changed so much since then. Like it doesn't like it's, but now they're trying to get to something else. They have to, because they can't. Like nothing is going to work for it. Like it's this weird point of nostalgia where I'm like, oh, this isn't gonna work. And again, you saying going with Power Rangers, I was like, when they tried making that 2016 movie, I was like, oh, this doesn't quite work.
Right.
And I'm not the biggest Power Rangers fan, so I was kind of like, oh, maybe I'll like this because it's gonna be like they're trying to. I'm like. That Krispy Kreme scene, I was like, what is going on? I was like, this doesn't work. Like, no. Like, that's when they change, that's in such a where they change too much, because they're trying to make it their own thing. And at that point, just make your own, make something else. Make a Power Rangers-esque thing over there. But it's not Power Rangers, it's a weird knockoff. It's something like it's over there. Apparently, so Hasbro's not going to lose the license for Power Rangers because they got the license, right? And now, or no, they're doing they still own the license, but Playmates is going to do the toys. Like, it's weird. Which, good, because a lot of the recent Hasbro toys for Power Rangers, before they took the break, were not that great. They had constant paint issues. The joints would like crumble or were too tight. Like, that's like the worst part where you're trying to cater to your fans but also can't deliver. So it's like the worst. Like, it just doesn't work. Is there anything out now where you're like, oh, I really like this. It's almost kind of what I like, and maybe it's that it is like a reboot or a remake or a sequel to, but it's still trying to be something different.
That's a good question.
For me right now, again, it's still Transformers, and it's actually old now. So I'm like, oh, this is actually not that old, and it was like 2009 when this show came out. Transformers animated, but only because it took of, hey, you remember everything here? We're gonna flip it on its side, flip things around, but we're gonna build to what you know, but it's gonna be in a new lens. Like Optimus Prime, he's not the leader. He's the part of like this ragtag like crew of Autobots, but like it's still the stuff you know. Like Optimus, he's not a young like rebel. He's still kind of like a young leader, and you still have everything you know, but he's not quite there yet.
Right.
But he's gonna get there, and it was really interesting because like the Primes are the leaders. It's actually a different character from the Transformers cartoon, and like Megatron is different because he really doesn't respect Megatron like he did in the original show. But by the end of the show, it's kind of like what you know, but it's different, but like a good way. Where it's like, oh, I really enjoy this. This is like not confusing at all.
Right.
Same with the digital show, the recent one they did before they canceled it because people didn't like it because people
really?
kept complaining. They're like, oh, this isn't my Ninja Turtles. Again, because they did the whole concept of, hey, let's flip. Like Leonardo wasn't the leader; it was Raphael, and people didn't like that because Leonardo was more of a comedian, like not comedian, but he's more the comedic role. He was more of like your like a face man from the A-Team. He's kind of like a con man type character. But by the end of the show and the movie they did, he had become the leader because there was a whole episodes where he had to make the decisions because Raph couldn't, and it kind of showed, oh, Leo's not there yet.
Right.
This is a Leo who hasn't figured that all out yet because whenever Neutral shows up, whenever they do it, Leo's already the leader. He's already kind of got everything figured out. Like he's already has like fallen into that the hero leadership archetype. Like we never see him having to have that struggle. He's already been written into that position, and people didn't like it, so it got canceled. And I was like, oh, this show was like really good. My other theory is because Nickelodeon was really going into the 11-minute format. I think that's what really hit the show and affected it because it couldn't tell full stories. Because Nickelodeon's like, no, you got to do 11 minutes.
That is not a lot of time.
Yeah, well, apparently this generation now can't like sit there for like 20 minutes to watch a show. It's got to be in 10 minutes. It's got to be 5 seconds now. We're going to put it on Vine.
5 seconds. I need content now.
Vine's nostalgic now. Apparently, Elon Musk wants to bring it back on like through Twitter or X,
really?
Or whatever you want to call it. Yeah.
Huh. I think I heard that.
Or collectively, what I'm hearing people call it is Twix, but not the candy bar.
Twix. That's kind of funny.
That is funny. That is. But did you?
Old Twix.
Yeah. Did you have an idea what you were gonna?
Yeah, actually, I was thinking one that I kind of liked, where they kind of it's the same flavor but a different story.
Mm-hmm.
Was the Lord of the Rings: Rings of Power?
Yeah.
I like that pretty good.
Yeah, because it's like, hey, let's tell a part of the story at a different point from what you already know.
Right.
Yeah, that's another way of it, because I feel like they're like unnecessary sequels or prequels.
Right.
Like, did we really need the Star Wars prequels? did we really need the Star Wars sequels? That's really like, that's part of me. Like, again, studios want to have their thumbprint on this shiny product that people like. It's like, well, we got to tell our part of the story.
There's actually getting ready to be another Lord of the Rings movie.
Is there? I think I heard that
toward the end of the year.
Really?
Yeah, I just read about it. Yeah, it's something with a Rohirrim. I cannot remember what the name of it is at the moment. But yeah,
you think
it's like Rise of the Rohirrim or something like that. Yeah, it's gonna. I'm curious to see what they do with that. And I think it's Erwin is coming back as the narrator in it.
Interesting.
Or it's one of the female characters is going to come back as a narrator.
Nice.
It's not going to be Peter Jackson, but it's going to kind of be. I think they're going to try to be in that same kind of respectful vein of it. You know, it's not going to be exactly like the Lord of the Rings, which by the way are now like over 20 years old. Holy crap!
Yeah, which is crazy.
Yeah, but yeah, so that's good. I'm happy for that. I'm looking forward to that one for sure.
But even that, it's like, hey, you remember this thing? We're gonna bring it back, but none of the original people is gonna come back and work on it.
Right.
So now you kind of pigeonhole those creators, and if it fails, you kind of get to blame them.
Yeah, that's true. They kind of have an out.
Yeah, because it's like, oh, it's their fault because they're trying to be reverent as they can to the original source material or what someone else wrote, but they don't write like those people, so like it doesn't work. Again, X-Men '97 has that problem. They didn't bring back the original people, the original writers that did it. Well, the guy that's working on it now ended up getting fired because apparently Disney doesn't screen people when they look up people because the guy had OnlyFans.
Oh, well, that's
so
interesting.
Which I'm like, as a studio, wouldn't you screen the people that work for you?
Especially if you're trying to be really family friendly, or at least pretend like you're family friendly.
Yeah, or at least have a faction of your company trying to be family friendly.
Yeah, at least one part of it.
Yeah, like I'm like, that's bizarre. Which now everyone's concerned when season 2 comes out because apparently they already got greenlit for season 2 and 3. I'm like, but what if season 2 is not as good as season 1?
Right.
Because season 1's very tight. Like, I don't feel like there's any filler. Like, what if in season 2 it's all filler? Like, what if it doesn't work? Or they contradict something that already happened because they didn't go watch the original show? Like, what happens then? Like, there's a lot of stuff, again, that's like that.
It's hard to keep the timeline or the same kind of vein if you keep having to switch writers and whatever too.
Yeah. Like, you think you have a continuity person, which...
Yeah.
So, I went and saw Ghostbusters, and they say there's a continuity person for that movie. There is a scene where they've cut the fire pole, and then they forget they cut it. They slide down it during part of the movie.
Right.
The same fire pole. I'm like, oh... These scenes got shot out of sequence. These scenes got shot out of sequence. Someone told me there was 2 fire poles, but I'm like, no, there's 1 fire pole in that firehouse.
They got really tired and really lazy when they were doing their editing.
Or something. I was like, this doesn't work. I was like, what is going on? But, yeah, I'm trying to think of something where, like, they had different creators, and it didn't quite work. Because, I guess, any of the DC stuff, animated movies, especially when they were like, for some reason they like to get a lot, I get the reason, they bring back a lot of the original voice cast. So then everyone immediately assumes, oh, it's in that continuity. And which sometimes they do, but then, like, they get weird with it. They're like, let's do this weird plot point with Batman and Batgirl being a thing, which is weird when you actually think about it, and a lot of people don't like it, and a lot of people like to forget about that. But again, it's that thing of, oh, someone else had an idea. Actually, half the creative team had that idea, and the other wasn't there to be a check and balance. And a lot of people like to forget about that part of the DC animated stuff. Like, it's this weird thing that people like to forget. Like, just forget it, because it it's weird. It doesn't work. But is there anything out right now that you're like not really connected to anything because everything has to cater to something old? Where it's like, oh, this is fresh. Oh, I actually really like this. Like, it's new.
Again, that's a good question. Started to watch the TV series Shogun today. That looked kind of interesting.
Oh, yeah. I've heard a lot of people talk about that.
Yeah. Yeah. That actually was a bit of a nostalgia thing for me, cause back in the day I used to play Shogun Total War, and I don't know if you've heard that game or not. Have you heard the Total War series of PC games?
Maybe.
They've had different ones. I think they've had Rome.
Yeah.
Yeah, they've had Rome Total War. I think they've had Shogun Total War. Different ones. And so I thought, well, I remember the Shogun Total War, and so and also playing Dynasty Warriors. Or Dynasty Warriors?
Maybe.
Yes, no, maybe. Okay.
That one.
Anyway, Dynasty Warriors. Yeah. It's pretty popular, or has been pretty popular in the past. Anyway, it's talking about feudal Japan, and the battle over the kingdom of Japan, in that time period. And so it's kind of like, man, this could be interesting. And so that's been kind of good. And then I also just finished the new Fallout series on Amazon Prime, which was interesting.
That one, that one's nostalgia, but it's also like, hey, it's further down. But then a lot of people start asking more questions. We're like, where does this fit in the timeline? I guess because a couple characters show up. But,
right. Well, you can kind of see, having played most every Fallout game except maybe the original couple, like from way back in the day, you kind of do see that. I guess that is kind of cool thing. One thing with nostalgia is if they do callbacks right, you'd be like, oh, I see where that fits in, or oh, that's that character that I saw, or whatever. And I was doing that with the show. Like when I saw a certain, like a robot, I'm like, oh, I know where that, I've seen that robot, and
nice.
This is, oh, that's how that explains this, or whatever else. So I think that's kind of doing some callbacks right. Sometimes they just way overdo it, or they just do it in such a way that just does not make sense in a way.
Yeah, like that.
As far as your
movie.
Question, what? Okay, I didn't see it, but go for it.
Oh my gosh. So there's a whole scene where like the worlds are like converging, and they're like, "Hey, you remember Batman '66? Hey, you remember the Christopher Reeve Superman movie?" But like the worst part of it is Nicolas Cage shows up as Superman because they were going to make a movie of. There's a whole documentary about it, about Nicolas Cage being Superman in like late '90s. Ended up getting canceled. The worst part about it is they didn't get any original actors or use stock footage. They used AI, and you can tell. Like, it's... Because, like, when you see Adam West, like, sometimes the ears are missing.
Oh, wow.
Like, I was like, this movie has, like, $300-something million. You don't check that. Like, this movie already has other problems. What doesn't need to be the problem is the stuff calling back to. Like, and it didn't make sense in the movie. Why all this was here. Like, like, even Michael Keaton thing was kind of like, oh, why is Michael Keaton Batman in this universe now? Like, in this alternate universe? Like, doesn't really make sense. And then it gets really weird. It gets worse when George Clooney shows up at the end. And it's like, hey, you remember George Clooney was Batman? That doesn't... Like, where are you going to go from here? Because that was the last movie in this current DC timeline before the reboot, or whatever they're doing. So it's like the worst kind of nostalgia, because it's lost on everyone. Like, it's... Why'd you do this? Like, it doesn't work. Man, that movie's not great.
I can tell you're not a big fan.
I liked it when I watched it, and the more I thought about it, the more I'm like, oh, I don't like this movie. Like...
That's kind of funny.
I was like, the more I was driving home after seeing it, I was like, oh, this isn't that great as I thought it was going to be. Because, like, you're kind of seeing it's like, oh, it flashes on screen, and then you're like, oh, you really think about it.
Mm-hmm.
Ezra Miller might have had something to do with that, you know, him being the person he is, doing all the stuff he was doing. One of the pivoting from just talking about Ezra Miller, one of the things I've been watching recently, I just started watching it. One episode's only been out. It's actually an anime called Kaiju Number 8.
Okay.
And it's essentially it's kind of like, not really being nostalgic, it's kind of like, oh, hey, and what if there was, like, a cleaning crew to pick up, like, the mess of, like, from monster rampages? And what if one of them gets infected and then himself becomes a kaiju? Like, how would that play out? I'm like, oh, this is actually interesting. We've never done that before. Like, you've had, like, people turn into monsters, like, American stuff, but, like, there's never been, like, a huge, like, maybe Attack on Titan where it's like, oh, there's people turning into titans. But he's not out there eating people. He's just kind of like, oh, I'm gonna fight. I can fight the other monsters, but also I'm being hunted by the people that I work with. Like, it's so there's the comedic aspect too of it, where it's like, where were you last night? Oh, I was out on a jog. Oh no, I was running from you guys because I can't talk in my monster form. Like, I was like, oh, this is actually entertaining. Like, it's one episode's out, but it's still very interesting concept. Even One Punch Man is, like, a very interesting concept. Of, like, what if the character is so overpowered, like, he's bored? Like, that's the show. Like, there's one, like, he goes to the supermarket and is ignoring, like, someone, like, destroying, like, downtown. And then, like, he breaks the supermarket, and he's like, well, I guess I should get involved now. And, like, that's the episode of him trying to find, like, a deal on, like, some watermelon or something like that. Like, that's the entire episode. Like that, like, but it's, like, really fun because it's, like, it's the stuff you don't think about in, like, comic books or, like, movies. Like, yeah, what if this one hero had one day off, or what if he met other heroes and wasn't interested? Like, it's like that, like, those, like, in between moments that, like, some people are really good at writing and some people aren't. Like, I'm like, oh, that's actually very interesting. In, like, a world of, hey, let's have a blue laser in the sky. Let's have the world-ending movie instead of just having, like, a sit-down, like, fight in an alley. Like, it's, I don't know. It's end of the day, nostalgia is this fun thing, if done right, could work. Like, there are plenty of shows I'd like to come back. But do they need to come back? Did they already, did they have that fitting ending? Or do you tack on another season and it just doesn't work? Like, it doesn't live up to the hype that this series had.
Right.
Like, it doesn't quite work. Like, would I like to see more of Batman animated series? But, yeah, that's not going to happen now.
Alright.
Like, it doesn't work. Do I want to see, like, other properties? Like, would it be cool to see more Power Rangers? Well, if they didn't just focus on Mighty Morphin Power Rangers, it actually might be interesting.
Right.
That's, like, it's, I don't know. Like, there's a drawback to your callbacks and stuff like that. And I don't know. Maybe I'm an old man where I'm just
man,
like...
Old man? What are you, in your 20s, aren't you?
Yeah. Well, no, I'm just saying, like, I'm kind of tired of, hey, you remember this thing? But maybe just, like, the stuff I grew up around.
Right.
So it's like that Deadpool trailer, it's like, hey, remember all the Fox movies? I'm like, oh, like the two good ones?
Mm-hmm.
Like, it... I don't know. I
That
really want to hear...
What am I, an old man? No.
Yeah, I'm going to sound clip that. Is that... I'd like to see what Strange and Silly's thoughts are.
Right. We meant to bring this up to them.
Yeah, they aren't here. So... Yeah. But they will be next week, because the other topic we were talking about for next week, I'm
nostalgic for a time when Strange and Silly are here. Oh, wait. No, I was kidding.
Be like, hey, guys, we're traveling for work.
Man, travel for work. Yuck.
I know. Hey, I almost had to do it, so
That's true.
I'm glad
And
I
laugh
did.
at in the 11th hour, you didn't have to. So there you go.
I got yeah. All right. I think this is a good end because now we're just
Rambling.
having another. Yep.
That's
So
fair.
hope you guys enjoyed this episode 20 of the Long Distance Pizza Party podcast. You can follow us on TikTok and YouTube at Pizza Party Pod. Thanks to people that subbed to YouTube. We got like 10 new subs after last week's episode, which is actually really cool. And the
rock
subs
on.
stayed. And the subs stayed. It wasn't like you get them and then like they left.
That makes a difference.
TikTok, not so much. I don't know what's going on with TikTok. For some reason, we had some good views for a while. It was like 700, 600, 700. And now it's like 2 to 5. I don't know what's going on with
It's a dang algorithm.
TikTok. I don't know I don't know, because I look at it and I generally do the same thing, like hashtags. And I try to keep the hashtags relevant to the topic, so that should help. I don't know what's going on. Whatever. TikTok's... I think also TikTok's in this weird mess of like, are we going to close down or not? I don't know what's going on.
Yeah, who knows what's going to happen there?
That's like the third time they've almost closed down, so who the flip knows?
Right.
So, you can find me at FT_food reviews. I just recorded Taco Bell's Nacho Fries. They brought it back for like the 800th time, it feels like. So that video's out. What's the other one? What's another one that's out? There's plenty of videos that are coming out. Oh, the video we want tonight, the shorts, where I try a Sam's Club hot dog for the first time because I somehow got a Sam's Club subscription. I don't know how. I don't remember buying it, but I did. I must.
You must have been half asleep or something.
I don't know because I don't shop at Sam's Club, but I have the card, and I got the bill for it like 2 weeks ago. So, and they make it really hard to cancel it. You have to like go into Sam's Club to cancel it. Like you can't just cancel it on the website. You know, it makes
That's
no
random.
sense. I know, makes no sense. It's 2024. Get with the Sam's Club. That's. So next week we'll be talking about church horror stories and other just random church stories. Because it is.
This'll be a good one.
Yeah, we are part of God First Geek Second, a Discord chat that isn't linked down below. So church stories will come up. Spoilers. I had to deal with a kid peeing on Easter. So that's.
Sorry. Say it again. Say it again for everybody to hear that.
I had to deal with a kid peeing on Easter Sunday.
Peeing on Easter Sunday.
Yes.
Well, if that doesn't make you want to tune in the next episode, I don't know what will.
Yes, so stay tuned for that. We'll be back in 2 weeks. Will I be here? Yeah, I will be here. So stay tuned for that.
And if you have any ideas for a podcast, please feel free to leave them in the comments.
Yes.
That you want to see, or
If
interview,
if
or a
do
guest you want us to interview.
Yes. Put like
Good.
hashtag podcast idea so then I can filter it.
Yes,
So-
that would be helpful.
Because YouTube comments being weird. Also, we got accused of using AI for a thumbnail. That is not true.
Oh, we might have to break that one down. We never properly broke that down, did we?
I was like, what? It was like after that last week's episode went up, I got the comment, and the YouTube comments was being weird all day. And it was like, how dare you use AI? And I just went, hey dude, I don't use AI for... The only time I use AI is... My brother is calling me. Why is he calling me? Random.
Hey, hope you guys enjoyed this episode. Follow us at TikTok at Pizza Party Pod. We also have a Discord chat, God First Geek Second. Links are all down below. You can also comment down below for a podcast idea using the hashtag podcast idea. Again, we appreciate you guys. Have a day.